Get on Team Shaq with WinBet. We're playing parlays, boosting odds, and laying the wildest prop bets. Don't miss another game. Download the WinBet sport betting app today.
Sign up today and win $200 in free bets when you place a $50 first-time wager on a straight bet or parlay. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at winbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in a state where playthrough WinBet is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
Blue Wire.
First pick in the 1991 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Larry Johnson from University.
I'm not supposed to be here, man. A lot of people from where I'm from, don't make it.
Charlotte, we're back.
Welcome, Hornets fans. Game 3 of the 2022 Summer League just finished between the Hornets and the Cavs. This is Richie, and we are glad that you guys are joining us today for this post-game recap episode. I'm joined by Brian, and we're both here to break the game down. Before we get into this, I want everyone who is listening to consider signing up for BuzzBeat Plus. We are so thankful for those that have already done so. So basically for $35 a year, that's less than $3 a month, you get ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, and the occasional exclusive episode that is only available to those that have a private feed. And at the very least, just go ahead and enter your email to get the notifications. And so right when the BuzzBeat Plus episodes drop, they will be directly sent to your inbox. And if you want further information, that link will be in the description or the episode notes if you want to look into it a little bit further. So, Brian, how's it going? I guess this game, out of any of the games that we've watched so far, has definitely been the most exciting, most pleasing to the eyes. I mean, there were still the turnovers and stuff like that, but the three-point shooting, just plus the win, obviously does a whole lot of good for this Hornets team.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a bunch of different ways, this was hands down the best game we've seen at Summer League in terms of offensive efficiency for the Hornets, 3-point shooting, the young guys that popped, the time of play. Like you and I were talking before we hit record, like this game just flew by. It was like a 90-minute game basically, which is nice for Summer League. But so yeah, I just thought all like start to finish, this just checked a bunch of boxes for the Hornets. So interesting game, and I think some enjoyable stuff to dive into because I think the vibes should be, at least for the time being, pretty good after tonight.
All right, let's jump into this. The final score was Charlotte 91, Cleveland 80. Hornets are now 2-1 in Summer League with 2 more games to go. I was hoping for a win because every time we do one of these post-game pods, it just feels like they lose. We did not do one after the second game when they won. Let's actually start with Mark Williams. He got the start here in Summer League today. And we actually both hinted at this after game 1, that it would make sense for Charlotte to give him the starting nod, to give us a better look at him, to give us maybe an extended look at him. I think overall through these 3 games, I think he's making a bigger impact on the court than maybe the box score might show. And I think that, maybe outside of this game, there was some underwhelming highlights for him in those first 2 games, but I think he'll do just fine. If you're looking for flashy stuff out of him right now, you probably aren't going to get a ton of that. But what he is doing is deterring shots at the rim. He got an early block in this game against the Cavs. I think he had 2 or 3 in total. He sets the tone back there. And in general, like opponents are driving and second guessing themselves if they're going to shoot, if they're going to pass. Some have even traveled on their way down to the block or made a bad pass or had to make like a looping pass. And it just kind of slows things down with his size back there. Even if it doesn't always end up in a block, he's impacting the play in more ways than you would think. And then switching it over to the offensive end, he's not necessarily been like totally impactful, but that was to be expected. I think when you put shooters around him like they did in this game, it just looks better. Like he's not necessarily finishing at the rim as efficiently as you want through these 3 games, but I think he's setting good screens. I think he's drawing fouls. I think he's crashing the offensive glass. And this leads me to my first question I received from Div, and Would love your thoughts on this. Div says this: Marks seemed a little less than explosive than he was expecting. Would love to hear what you guys think about that. And just my quick reaction to this, Brian, like he doesn't have a good pick and roll partnership, at least not in the summer league level, that's going to put pressure on the defense. And because of that, he's catching a lot of these passes at a standstill. And so when the defense is set, he's not getting much of a runway. So, he's not an explosive player per se like Duren, but he's got some tools. He's got the reach. I just think that the spacing and the offensive game plan has been hampering him to kind of have these highlight plays and the vertical spacing. Although he looked a little bit more bouncy in today's game though, Brian.
Yeah. Just real quickly would say, like, I think we predicted this after the first game that Williams would start at some point in Vegas. And I just thought the rotations in general were really nice tonight from the Hornets coaching staff. And I'm sure we'll get into this more as we sort of like peel the focus back from off of Williams into talking about some of the other players for Charlotte. But I just thought the spacing was better for Williams to screen and roll and dive into, to be in the dunker spot, to cut and finish along the baseline. He got a couple of lobs and put back finishes. I think of Williams as, it's interesting because I think of him as like being pretty explosive, but it's not just like the incredible, like quick, nimble, vertical leap, right? I mean, that's like, he's not Evan Mobley, you know what I mean? In terms of just the ability, just in an instant is, several feet in the air. There's maybe a little bit more of a load for Williams, but like part of what makes him so, can do so much damage around the basket at both sides is the length, right? And so like it's a combination of the fact that for a guy that size, he moves pretty well, and he has just length that is sort of without precedent. So
he doesn't have to leap as much, right? Like he's got that wingspan and the standing reach. So
exactly. And, but I do think like, I don't think he's in no way, shape, or form is he like lumbering or anything like that. The times that I wish he was playing a little bit more quickly are these are possessions that I don't think will exist in the regular season, but like this is like the third, all three summer league games, they've had like, 4 or 5 possessions where they just like throw the ball to him in the post. And it's like catch, dribble, think about backing down. And it's just like all of a sudden 5 seconds are gone and he's either got to force something up or try to draw a foul, or he runs into a turnover, or he throws a grenade out to a teammate. It's like, those are the possessions where I think the processing doesn't look very good, where it's like, okay, this is happening too slowly, but that's not his strength. And I mean, like, I actually went back because even over the last couple of days, like after the first or second summer league game with Williams, where I was like, God, why are they throwing the ball to him like this in the post? Like, this is just like, these are just pointless possessions. And I went back and I pulled up my clips that I have from Williams this past season. And it's like, it is like he scored out of the post some, not much. Like it's not a strength of his, but the post ups that he was able to like be successful on, they're very quick. Like it's a quick seal and he gets really wide. Like, uses the reach and the wingspan to get wide. And then he goes very, very quickly. Like it's a quick catch, turn, finish, boom. And then if he misses it, like he should be able to play over the top, right? And second jump and try to maybe even put back in his own shot. It's these post-ups that he's getting in summer league. There's just like, again, you're just putting him in an awful spot and really just like lighting possessions on fire when you're like, yeah, let's like throw it into the big fella and like see, like let him go to work with, with his back to the basket. It's just like not his game.
Yeah. He's got to have a mismatch, or he's got to be very deep in the post.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a possession late in this game where, Cleveland was switching a lot in this game, and they switched to small onto him, and like he can't. Again, he can like it's not going to be like an auto bucket when he gets that kind of mismatch in the post. Like it can if he can get very deep and like seal and catch and go up quickly. But like that is something that like I was saying this about Williams before going into the draft. Like I will be curious to see as his career develops. Like, is this a guy that you can switch off the floor in terms of what he's able to do offensively? But I want to stick to the positives with Williams because like you touched on it with his work around the glass. Like I think he's been very aggressive trying to, I don't even think his rebounding stats are capturing kind of the impact he's having there. And on a per minute basis, he has been a very productive rebounder across these 3 games in Vegas. Had 8 tonight, 2 offensive, but like, I think there's a couple that, you know, 1 or 2 per game that he's just not getting credit for, because like he's getting in there and he's fighting for it, but it's deflecting out and, you know, Brady Manick sliding over and grabbing it or something like that. So I think rebounding wise, he's been solid. He needs to get stronger, certainly, and that will help him a lot, because I do feel like, you know, part of it is like he's able to try to access these rebounds that are seemingly out of his radius because of the wingspan, but it does feel like he just gets like knocked in the air a lot, you know, like guys under, like unintentionally are, you know, undercutting him or whatever. And it just, again, the stronger he gets, sort of the more like, you know, Karam's rebounds, whatever he's going to be able to get to, simply because of like the length's not going anywhere. Like, you know, he's got the thing that you can't teach or build on, but he certainly can get stronger. And I do think the movement and the processing in terms of the pick and roll has looked pretty good. I think he's done a nice job playing at a couple of different depths, like in a deeper drop, playing closer to the level. In Richie, you and I have talked about this. You tweeted about this. I think that's also where the Mark Williams effect can come into play. And certainly the hope would be that he develops into that, where you can play him, you know, you can drop him and then bring him up in the pick and roll, or you can have him be at the level and then drop, and he can kind of be in 2 places at one time, right? Where he's playing that middle ground game where he's going to chat like the guy, the ball handler with the ball is going to be worried about shooting a floater or a runner over the top, but they're also going to be worried about throwing the lob, you know, or trying to squeeze in a pass to the roll man. I think Williams so far in Vegas, his hands have been really active in pick and roll coverage as a defender, and he's gotten some steals and some deflections because of that. So like, I think very highly of Williams. I regard him quite highly as a prospect, primarily for the defense. And one of the other blocks he had tonight was, well, the first one was like a help block on Isaiah Mobley that I thought was some pretty nice one-on-one defense from JT Thor to sort of like, you know, stall Mobley, and then Williams came over and cleaned it up. And the second one was like a kind of like a late switch that he pinned off the backboard that led to a transition run out. Just like exactly what you want from Williams. I think he's done in that scenario. And I actually think he's done a pretty nice job of like switching when in Vegas when the matchup has called for it, or, you know, whether it's because it's a 4-5 ball screen in terms of like the guys guarding it, or because it's late in the clock or what have you. But just like when he's had to go out there and look, he's not switching out onto Dame Lillard or Curry or Chris Paul or whatever, but like I think he's done a nice job switching and staying in front of guards. My really only complaint with the defense is something that I talked about with you on the last pod, Richie, which is just he has a tendency to overextend, to overhelp, to leave his feet and leave the rim exposed for drop-off passes, for laydowns, for putbacks, like all of that stuff, which is something that, despite his dominance as a rim protector at Duke, was something that was a bit of a hindrance for him there as well. So I just think it's like some of that is going to be just like watching film and having a better understanding of guys' tendencies. I think some of that is going to be just more reps and improving his own individual timing. I think some of that is going to be Steve Clifford, you know, helping to mold him and saying like, hey, we want you back here and we want you to be a deterrent and to block every shot. But like, we also don't need you to do that. And in fact, like it's hurting us when you do it in this scenario. So that's the one thing with Williams that I think has been like a little shaky, but I'm not surprised by that. Richie, what have you thought about Williams guarding ball screens as like the screen defender? And maybe just any other sort of like loose Mark Williams thoughts after tonight?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, he's probably most comfortable in a drop, not coming up to the level. But to your point, he has had a little bit of versatility in terms of where he is guarding that pick and roll ball handler. And it kind of puts that ball handler in a space where they're conflicted. Do you try to drive and try to drive around Mark Williams? If he's given space, do we pull up for mid-range? Yeah, I haven't seen enough of him at Duke versus now to kind of make the comparison between the two, but just kind of looking overall like at his body type, like I would expect him to be more of like a drop guy. But if he can just eat up space, like that's all I really care. I'm not expecting him to be this like switch type of guy at the 5 position, but overall having a positive impact as a deterrent on the defensive side.
Yeah. I just think like I think it's very easy for us when we think about his reach and the standing reach and the wingspan. It's very easy to think about what that means in terms of like blocking shots at the rim or collecting rebounds. But this is something that I can't remember if we've talked about this or not. Maybe we've hinted at it a little bit, but just his ability, like as a guy that, yes, certainly not going to be someone that you play like right at the level often. He's going to be kind of in the drop. But again, I think with some flexibility inside of that, but that reaches the ability to sort of like, if he can stay down, stay on his feet, he can basically he can just threaten the ball handler who's maybe looking to shoot a pull-up, to shoot a runner. Like he can just kind of be in 2 places at one time. Like Bam Adebayo, who, let's not draw a line from Mark Williams to Bam because they're different players and because like Bam might be just like the best defender in the world. I know we've raved about his defense on this pod many times before. Bam is so good when Miami is not using him to switch or trap, but when they're using him kind of in that like half drop role where he's dropping, but then he's at the level, like when the ball handler tries to turn the corner, he's there, and he's able to use his wingspan and has athleticism to sort of like deter any sort of like mid-range attempt. But also like the entire time he's doing that, he's deterring lobs and he's making sure there's just no obvious pass. Now that requires some trust from help defenders on the backside, but just Williams, his length. And again, the more he becomes stronger and more comfortable laterally, then I don't know, like there's just some really cool stuff he should be able to do in terms of pick and roll defense. And I think some of the stuff we've seen from Summer League has been pretty encouraging.
Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. And I love it because Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources that were once reserved for big businesses. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. I don't talk about it a ton, but I have a fishing company. 5 years ago this month, my best friend Aaron and I started a bass fishing weight company called Woo Tungsten, because woo is the sound you make when you catch a giant bass. So we sell tungsten weights for bass fishing, and Shopify has made it so incredibly easy. They have all the tools and the resources that we need. No matter how big or small your business is, they just make it so effortless. And like mine, Shopify powers over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale. And you can reach customers online and across social networks with their ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. And you can gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond, which is something we use a ton. More than just a store, Shopify grows with you. Go to shopify.com/Blue Wire, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business today with Shopify. Go to shopify.com/Blue Wire right now. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Shopify.com/Blue Wire.
Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring in one place so easy because of sponsoring jobs. No other job site takes care of you like Indeed, because with Indeed, you only pay if an applicant meets your must-have requirements. And Indeed's doing something no other job site has done. Now with Indeed, businesses only pay for quality applications matching the sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/Blue Wire to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, one more thing I want to note about Mark Williams before we get to Kai Jones, because I definitely want to talk about Kai Jones here. There was an underrated play that I saw from Mark Williams in the second quarter, and it kind of goes to highlighting your point about just being an active player on the glass. It was midway through the second quarter. It was off a Crutcher miss. He basically took the rebound out of the hands of the Cavs player, and he like spins inside to the paint midair to make this layup. Like overall, it was a pretty like unexciting play, but for a player that struggled at the rim for the first two games, it was good to see him get that going for him. But overall, it just kind of showed that type of fight that he has on the glass on both ends. You know, offensively, that was the play that took place there, but defensively, you're seeing it as well. But let's get to Kai Jones. We finally saw him get some minutes at the 5 for the first time in Vegas. With Mark Williams getting the start, he was shifted to the bench. At the 4 in those first two games for Kai, like he can't really get involved as much. Like he can set screens to an extent, but like what do you do with Mark Williams and Nick Richards if he's playing beside like you can't put them in the corner. They're not going to space. They're not going to do anything there. Now, he played exclusively at the center against the Cavs today. I still think that they're using Kai and even Mark to a certain extent on the sidelines at the high post, at the elbow a little bit too frequently. I wish they were kind of in the middle a little bit more. It's almost like they're receiving the pass a little bit too far from the hoop. Mm-hmm. But Kai Jones, to me, this was his best game, and I think it has a lot to do with the position that he played, with the lineup configurations, with the players around him. He was a little bit more selective in trying to turn the corner and get to the hoop, but that's where he's at his best, like being aggressive and getting his shots at the rim. Like he's a pogo stick, right? Like he can get to the rim, and if he can get there without turning the ball over in a controlled manner, that's when his athleticism just takes over. And I think the offense for Charlotte in all three of these games, in my eyes, has been less than appealing. But in today's game against Cleveland, it was just better because you had Manic, you had LiAngelo, and then obviously you're using Kai as a 5 and not alongside Richards or Mark Williams. So would it be awesome for Kai to develop an outside shot? Yeah, but at this point in his development, I think 5 is the way to go. And I think through the first 3 games, you saw the difference in today's game against the Cavs versus the first 2 games. So very impressed with Kai's like pogo stick, getting up off the floor. He does have a face-up game, but I still get a little bit weary when he drives the ball, but somehow he manages to make it all the way to the hoop.
Yeah, I think just to start off and from right where you left off there, Richie, is like, I just thought the functional athleticism and strength was on display for Kai. The first finish he had tonight where he, faked the handoff, catch off the elbow catch, and quickly get downhill and not just turning the corner and using his foot speed to beat an opposing 5, but able to put his shoulder down and create some separation right at the front of the rim. And like, once you do that, like if he's able to, when he creates space in the restricted area, like it's over, you know what I mean? Like he's in an instant, he's going to be above the rim and ripping it down another half second later. So there are moments with him, and we talked about this even after some of his frustrating performances, where he just has these flashes. He had that one, I think you clipped it, the like grab and go finish he had in the Indiana game to start things off, like late in the game. He just does some special stuff for a guy his size, offensively. And I do think as well, I thought he did some nice stuff. Like, rare are we going to point out Kai Jones and really like praise the defense or whatever. And he definitely had some breakdowns tonight, including this one, Cleveland ran a pin down for Ochai Agbaji, and he just like leapt out like he was switching on it, but like hadn't communicated that. And so the screener ended up slipping and got what should have been an open look at the rim. But JT Thor did a really nice job rotating over and blocking that shot. It's like, what is Kai doing here? But I thought there were some other possessions where he did a nice job switching out. He did a nice job showing early help on Abaji's, pin down or DHO catches. But like this is the tough thing with Kai, is that offensively he can be really dynamic if you play him as your de facto 5, right? So there's 4 guys around him. And even though he wants to like pop and play in space and show off the handle at times, like technically like he's your 4 round 1 guy, even if you're accessing some like, some 5 out looks or whatever. It's just like how because of the defense, it just brings into all these questions of like fit and scalability and with Kai. Can you build a like competent defense with him right now against NBA competition? Probably not. That's why you want to see if you can get, have minutes with him playing at the 4, and being being the low man. I think he also had some like really nice, help instinct blocks at the rim tonight where he rotated over and was able to shut down a what should have been a clean look at the rim. So again, he has those flashes. It's just consistency. Can he be there? He struggles in chase defense. We saw that in the Lakers game. He got lost a couple of times when Cole Swider ran off down screens or off pin downs. So like, it's hard to find a spot for him defensively at the moment, even though he does sort of like leave you wanting to see more of it because the flashes on offense or in transition can be pretty tantalizing. And also if you're able to play Kai in that de facto, nominal 5-man role, then you can access something that you and I have spoken about before, Richie, which is like Kai hit like the optimized version of Kai is someone that threatens as a screener, hopefully with LaMelo Ball, as a guy that can do everything off the screen, right? Maybe not like pass and play make really well, but as far as like attacking and shooting, should be able to do a lot, right? Can dive and be a lob threat at the rim, can pick and pop and shoot threes, and can pick and pop and then use that if there's a hard closeout, can attack the closeout, get downhill, or can try to get to a, dribble to his left and get to a, second side DHO or whatever. And that's just hard to do, to your initial point, if Mason Plumlee or Mark Williams or Nick Richards are on the court in the dunker spot, right? Like the spacing is just not there. So I don't know. I thought the spacing was way, way, way better tonight. And it's probably not a surprise that Kai was able to take advantage of that a little bit. I do think specific to this game, Cleveland kind of did Charlotte some favors by just like all of the like random double teams they were throwing at Charlotte, that the Hornets had just like no problem like 1-2 passing it and getting a good shot. Like I don't think it's like much of a surprise why the Hornets shot like almost 40% on threes or had some good looks at the rim. Like they were just moonwalking into advantage because of Cleveland's whatever Cleveland was trying to do defensively tonight. What I will say is, like, I'm with you on some of the like inconsistencies Kai has offensively if you're using him in the corner role, like the low usage cutter spot up role, which is something that we've talked about, that Cody Martin has found success doing, that Jalen McDaniels has found success doing, that even when he was playing with the big boys last season, I thought JT Thor did a pretty nice job playing out of the corner, right? Being a cutter, being an offensive rebounder. And it's like, that's the stuff that Kai may need to get better at if he's going to like get on the court and like let's see if the Hornets are playing meaningful minutes this season, I guess. but if they are and he's to be a part of that, then I think he's going to have to show a little bit of versatility and become a little bit better at handling that stuff. I just don't think we can just write it off yet, because one of the ways he's utilized would require him to be the essential, the 4-man defensively and play out of the corners as like a lower usage guy. And look, maybe that just doesn't work and it's just a deal breaker for this season, but that is one of those reasons it's like, I just can't give up on it because that spot is available in the rotation, especially with the roster a little bit in flux at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he factors into that big man rotation. He played down in Greensboro last year, mostly because he wanted playing time. And he could have that opportunity again in Charlotte. And, the center position and the 4-5 position, I guess, if you want to call it, is up for grabs in certain areas. And speaking of another big, Nick Richards, he did not play today, but we do have a question about Nick Richards from Ben at updates on Ben on Twitter. Says, I see a lot of criticism about Nick Richards. I think he could be a backup center in the NBA, but apparently not many others can see that. I think he's developing into an above average rim protector and a rebounder at his position. My question, what are your thoughts on Nick Richards and the slander that he is getting? So I'm not exactly sure what has been said or what the criticism is on social media, but I can probably assume it might be a little bit overcritical. I don't think Richards has been as bad as maybe this question might be implying. He's a guy that you know what you're getting. And we talked about that after game one. Like, you just know what you're getting out of this guy. And we've seen some of the same stuff here in Vegas that we've seen throughout the course of his career. Like, the biggest positives that I see from Nick Richards are this. Like, he crashes the offensive boards. He's an above average rim defender, like Ben says. The biggest negatives that I see from him over the years and also in Summer League is like the lack of playmaking and his inability to kind of catch and hold on to the basketball. But overall, he feels more comfortable in his role. And to Ben's point, he probably hasn't been as bad as some have been making him out to be. He's just not an exciting player. And I think that probably plays against him when things go wrong with Nick Richards. So those are kind of my thoughts on Nick Richards. You just know what you're getting out of this guy, Brian.
Yeah, Richie, honestly, like, couldn't agree. I don't want to echo everything you said, but I really do agree with it. If Lee were here, I know he would be ready to sing the praises of Nick Richards. So there are some people on this pod, some of the hosts that will make shirts. So maybe next time the Lee's on, we can have him go and get into his bag with Nick Richards. But yeah, for me, it's just like you said, he kind of is what he is. I think he has the ability to be like a number 3 center on a team. Maybe he could be a full-time backup. That's maybe a little bit too rich for me at this moment, but I think he's absolutely a guy that could be a back end of the rotation guy because he's willing to like throw he's big and he's willing to like throw his body in to contest shots or to go for rebounds. I don't always love the mobility in terms of pick and roll defense. So I think he's a little rigid in terms of that. And then you also touched on just like the limitations offensively. Like, he doesn't shoot, he doesn't play make. You can't like throw it to him in space in the pick and roll and expect him to like build off the advantage. Even in the Indiana game to start out in Vegas, like I think it was the Indiana game, not LA, but like he caught the ball in space and, was just a little clumsy with it and traveled. So again, that's just like he's limited offensively, but I think given some of the rim protection, given his size, given just like the fact that it does seem like he likes to play basketball and he's willing to like, absorb some contact. Yeah, I think he can be a guy that cracks, NBA rosters for a while. I just don't see much upside out of it, I guess, to your point about him being sort of a limited player. So that's kind of where I'm at with Richards, and just looking at this roster, it's like, there's 3 guys I'd rather see play. There's maybe 4 guys. There are 4 guys I'd rather see play center than Richards, right? Like, I'd rather have Mason Plumlee, Mark Williams, PJ, and Kai Jones. At least, I mean, this sort of depends on the matchup with Kai, but I just think given his upside, I think I'd rather him take those reps as opposed to Richards. Although, again, I don't want to like knock Richards too much because I do think he's like a guy that can be a depth piece, but beyond that, I just don't see a ton more.
Well, we appreciate the question, Ben. I'm sure some of the people that were slandering Nick Richards might actually be vindicated after today's game when he didn't play and the Hornets looked the best. So not good for the case for Nick Richards today. So I'm getting some thunder here, Brian. I'm hoping I don't lose power, but let's kind of...
Same here, man. Yeah. Same here. I'm in Raleigh, and yeah, we've had thunder rolling through here the last like 10 to 15 minutes. So fingers crossed, everybody.
Having said that, let's try to get through these last couple players a little bit quicker. And obviously, anyone here in Twitter Spaces, if you guys have a speaker request, we'll gladly take them. This is a player that we've not talked about yet, and I wanted to talk about, if we did one after game 2, I would have definitely talked about him, but it's LJ Figueroa. Like, he's been awesome down in Vegas for the role that he has. Like, we definitely need to sing his praises a little bit more. He's had a couple of good on-ball possessions on defense where you can just see him making the other player work. I thought he did well today as a ball denial defender in the corners. Obviously, Abaji got his points, but I don't think you can just look directly at the box score and say, hey, LJ didn't do his job. If his man went baseline, like he slid, it felt very much like a high school like shell drill where, he was denying the ball and he'd make sure he throw his hand up if his player went backdoor for that backdoor pass. He just seems like he's a magnet for finding the basketball. Seems like he's always around the ball on defense in terms of finding those off-ball steals. He definitely gets a lot of rebounds. Like, I don't know how many rebounds he's averaging, but it's got to be like over 6, I would think, in these 3 games. I wouldn't consider him a point guard by any means. Like, he's definitely an off-ball player, but I've seen him make some plays out of the pick and roll. It just seems like he's making the right play, even if it isn't always flashy. And up into this game, like, his shooting was awesome. Like, he came into this game, 13 of 13, I believe.
Yeah.
Tonight, obviously not as great, but that's not actually the thing that stood out to me. It was all the other stuff that I talked about. Like, he's not the quickest, he's not the most athletic, and you can tell he's probably had to overcome some of those things with just the feel for the game. And I definitely sense that he has a feel for the game. I ultimately don't think he makes the 15-man roster, but he very well could get a two-way contract, Brian. And I think he's definitely a player that's very easy to root for.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, with the injury to Scotty Lewis, who knows what's going to happen there? Maybe that
would be unfortunate.
Is creating, you don't like to think in those lines, but maybe that creates an opportunity if the play of McGowan's has made Charlotte think more highly about even elevating him above 2A status at some point. I'm sure hopefully we'll talk about McGowan's before we get out of here tonight. I think the biggest thing with Figueroa is like, can he shoot it? Because you mentioned sort of like the activity level off ball defensively. I agree. Like, I mean, Abaji got him on a couple, handoffs in this game, but he was far and away Charlotte's best chase defender against Abaji, like better than McGowan's. So yeah, I just think the activity level has been solid, especially in like various off-ball capacities, helping in the corner, rotating, chasing around screens, chasing around handoffs. So I think that's been solid for Figueroa. Like, it's maybe like reductive to think about it in these terms, but I do think it's sort of like this obvious. It is like, can he shoot it? And he shot it pretty well in college at St. John's and at Oregon, but did not shoot it great last season in the G League. So I think that's sort of like the thing. And again, some encouraging signs in a small sample out in Vegas, but I would be thrilled for this guy who's, look, this is like not a glamorous path. You know what I mean? To go G League and grind on a summer contract and try to earn your keep out in Vegas. But whether it's Charlotte or another team that's seeing him on film, again, hopefully he's making a case to perhaps get a call at some point for something more substantial than just being like a G League guy. And I would be happy for him because I did actually get to see a couple years ago when he was a freshman at St. John's. I got to cover an LJ Figueroa game up close when St. John's played at Duke that year against Zion and Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett and Trey Jones. So, and he was like incredibly active and really like a frisky, offensive creator in that game. So guy like that's kind of been on my mind for a couple of years now. And I've watched his career and I don't know, he's making a strong case for perhaps, cracking a 15-man roster or maybe getting a two-way spot somewhere in the NBA this season.
All right, we're going to end on these last 2 players, unless you really want to talk about LiAngelo or Brady Manick or Tyshawn. I don't really have much to talk about them, but I do want to talk about JT Thor and Bryce McGowan's, as you mentioned. Bryce McGowan's finished with a team high 24 points, very efficient from the field at 7 of 10. His pull-up shooting, you hinted at this or you talked about this after game 1, has been very nice and a pleasant surprise. You mentioned on the last podcast, but again, he had a lot of those pull-up threes in transition off the bounce. He's just so smooth with the ball in his hands. He had a nice baseline drive midway through the second quarter where he had to like double clutch in midair. Just tough finishes. And I think even like I mentioned after game 1, he is a guy that can go get his own shot, but he's not going to just over dribble. And I think more Hornets fans are probably gravitating towards him just because he is flashy. Like, Mark Williams obviously was the first round pick, and he's not as flashy, and he's probably not as productive in these 3 games, but he's definitely a lot more flashier, and that's why a lot of people are gravitating towards him. And then JT Thor, I'm just going to bunch him in here. You might have more than me on him. I don't have much to note about JT other than what I mentioned in the last Twitter Spaces. Like, he needs to find a corner 3-point shot and get stronger on the basketball. I think he converted on a couple 3-point shots, or maybe just one tonight, but he still doesn't shine for me when it comes to his drives and finishing through traffic. I swear, the most common possession for JT Thor through these 3 games in Vegas has been a drive, get fouled, and miss 1 or 2 from the line. Like, that just seems like a common occurrence for that guy. And I guess he did show some like flashes as a weak side protector, like you mentioned on a previous play earlier. And so that's good to see. Like, he's got the length, but just not a lot of like eye-opening possessions for JT Thor for me. So overall, like, I think maybe this has probably been one of his better games, but kind of I keep saying underwhelming for JT Thor, but I guess I don't know really what I expected out of him.
Yeah, I do think I'll just stick with Thor and then flip to McGowan's. I think with JT, again, I think the defensive flashes as like a help defender have been pretty solid out in Vegas. I thought they were good this season, this past season when he got 250 minutes or so with the Hornets this year. Like, thought he did pretty well, including in some against like actual NBA competition. I thought JT did a nice job as a team defender this year. And I thought he had some good moments, like guarding the ball along the perimeter. I think about the one game against Toronto. Scotty Barnes scored on him one-on-one time, and so did Pascal Siakam, but he was like right there. They just like overpowered him at the end of the play and scored. But I was like, wow, okay, these are still good defensive possessions. This guy's just got to get stronger. Like, there's some tools to work with. I don't think the chase defense has been good out in Vegas. I think the point of attack and like sort of, net screen navigation has been not great in Vegas either. It is important to remember this guy is still very, very young. And when Charlotte drafted him a year ago, the hope, again, he was a big development piece. This is a guy that could have gone back to Auburn for his sophomore season, decided to come out. Man, it would have been incredible to have seen JT Thor and Jabari Smith play together. But I'm obviously glad he's in the Hornets development system, because I do like him quite a bit as a prospect. As far as like the offense goes, I do think like I still buy the shot long term, and I think some of the flashes he's had as like a relocating shooter, shooting over closeouts, like the game winner against the Lakers in double OT the other night. And I going back to his time at Auburn, I thought he does a nice job attacking closeouts, though I don't think he's done that well in Vegas. I thought his best drive tonight came like late in the game, where I think Cleveland's defense was scrambled. He caught the ball in like the left wing and like drove and like little like Euro move, got into the lane and got fouled. I thought that was the best thing he's had. I think he's looked better, unsurprisingly, when he catches against like tilted or slanted defenses, right? And he's able to like try to get into a gap and use his length. He did play
more 4 tonight, right? Like, I feel like he played 3 in the first 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. So like better for him in that capacity as well, right? And getting to play with Williams, you've got a guy that can maybe draw a little bit of attention when he rolls, and Thor can play, in space on the catch and go game on the backside of those possessions. But some of again, I was going through Thor clips from the first 2 games out in Vegas earlier today, and just like, obviously the like isolation dribbling stuff from a standstill has been bad. Like, it just turnovers, or the defense commits a stupid foul and like bails him out. But like, that's just been bad. Like, he just doesn't have that right now. I've been a little bit more disappointed when like he's had possessions where he's gifted some advantage because of a screening action, and he either can't take advantage of that, or in the process of trying to take advantage of that, does something bad with the basketball. Like, I highlighted 2 plays on Twitter earlier from the Lakers game, where like one is he comes off a handoff from Mark Williams, and he has an open look at 3. He doesn't take it. The defender closes out. Thor shot fakes. And so like Thor has a vulnerable defender, like a defender in the air lunging at him. And instead of going like north-south with his left, with like his first step, as he like, sort of like swings through and looks to drive, he almost like takes a step up along the arc, like almost away from the basket. Then he tries to get downhill, but it's too late. Like that little window
Recover,
has closed, and the defender, and then all of a sudden, he doesn't have a right hand. So when he shoots this while he's dribbling to his right, he has to go back with his left hand and shoots a really bad, tough contested floater. There's been some other stuff where he's caught the ball in space coming off flare screens, and that's resulted in him just immediately driving into an opposing help defender in the lane for a charge and a turnover. Long term, I still really like Thor a lot as a prospect. I still buy the shot. I like the touch. I like some of the movement skills, even if you're not really seeing any payoff for it yet. I like his ability to attack closeouts, him to be able to get to the runner, and just some like the tools he has defensively. I do think my hope would be, because like it does seem like some of the ball skills have not developed a ton since last season. Mm-hmm. I'm hopeful that in the regular season he'll be able to get back to the role that we saw him having some success with the Hornets last year, which was being the fourth or fifth option, right? Playing out of the corner, cutting along the baseline, and hitting the offensive glass, and like looking to be a play finisher at the rim, and tear the rim down when he's able to get a putback or a drop down or a cut, dunk attempt. So my hope is that like when he gets back to that role, it looks a little bit better. But we'll see. Vegas has not been, at least in terms of the offense, has not been super encouraging, but I do think the context is not ideal for him. And I do think that's important to remember, especially for a young developing player, albeit a guy that's, playing in his second summer league. As far as McGowan's goes, very impressive offensive game with him. I talked about this on the last podcast. Like, you see the 3-point shooting at Nebraska, 27, 28%. I just think you can like throw that number out. I think it's almost meaningless to the extent that he took very, very like what the shot diet looked like at Nebraska, which was him taking difficult shots off movement, deep spot up threes, and certainly like, plenty of like self-created threes too. So I think that skewed that number a little bit, just like the degree of difficulty and what the shot selection looked like. And if you want to like knock him for shot selection, sure, go for that. But sit through a handful of Nebraska games and then get back to me on like what would have been better in some of those scenarios for him to do with the ball. So like, he has a night like this where he was hot shooting the pull-up threes, and that's great. And maybe that gives you really something to really dream on. But I also just like some of the stuff that's a little bit more bankable with him tonight too. You touched on it. He had that really in the first half, caught the ball against a rotating defense in the corner, drove, his ability to sort of like get baseline and then drive, then get back to the rim because of his first step and his length, I think is very impressive. And had that sort of like contortionist finish, the little like, clutch up and under move, which was nice. Had another nice catch and go in the second half where like, he caught the ball on a run out. He had a really nice diagonal, like hit ahead pass to Figueroa, who like kind of like fumbled the catch, threw it back to McGowan's, who attacked the closeout, got downhill, and then Abaji fouled him at the rim. Like that stuff is great. And like, that's the stuff that like, if Bryce McGowan's is going to like really have an impact with the Hornets this season, I mean, yeah, it's awesome if he's going to hit step back threes. That would be super cool. But like, I do think the stuff that is like a little bit more bankable with him is the catch and go, the rim pressure, the rim finishes, the foul creation, and the passing flashes, which is something, Richie, that you and I spoke about after the first game. You highlighted it on Twitter. I thought tonight he had some nice passes. I just think his feel has been pretty good as far as like moving without the ball, making the extra pass. I think he's done a nice job of that so far. I think he's had probably 2 or 3 like extra passes that resulted in open looks or guys being able to then like attack off the dribble or whatever. I think he's done a nice job relocating without the basketball. So that's the stuff that I see offensively. And it's like, so this guy isn't just like, yeah, he's 6'6" and can pressure the rim, but like he's got some game and some flow and some feel to his game. And again, I mean, the passing numbers at Nebraska, they were, well, let me rephrase that. The assist numbers at Nebraska were bad, but again, context is very important. And I think he's shown maybe not anything super, manipulative and super special as far as like playmaking goes, but I think some of the diagonal passes, some of the skip passes have looked good. I think he's tried to throw some tough passes, and some of that stuff has resulted in turnovers. but I kind of like seeing him take chances as a passer. Like that's encouraging too. But so again, I think all of that stuff is very encouraging, and just like the pull-up shooting tonight, like, oh my word, man. I mean, it was just so sick. The little like between the legs, rhythm, step back and in secondary action or semi-transition or in transition. He had a pick and roll pull-up three over the top of a switch late in the game from like the left wing. That was pretty deep. That was nice too. So look, I think something like that, the free throw percentage, the pull-up shooting, these are things that speak to skill. And if you're able to add that to a guy with his length who can also get stronger but can also pressure the rim, like the Hornets may have hit on something with the 40th pick in terms of finding an offensive playmaker. We'll see, because his role is obviously going to change, as things move forward when they leave Vegas, and if he's going to get reps with the Hornets next season, they need other people that can make plays, but certainly like his role is going to look perhaps a little bit differently, even if there are some opportunities. So anyways, McGowan's, he was awesome tonight. Obviously sort of like the player of the game offensively. Defensively, it's rough. Got a lot of work to do there. Even if I did think he had some nice like help rotations in this game, tried to take a charge, had a nice contest at the rim. But focusing on offense, I think there's a lot of positives to pull from with Bryce McGowan's.
Yeah, offensively, this team as a whole just looked better tonight as the Hornets won by 11 points. Unless we have any speaker requests, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. For those of you guys that joined late, this will be turned into a BuzzBeat episode. As far as the next game, the fourth Summer League game, there's a good chance we could do another one of these. If we do decide to hop on Twitter Spaces following that Bulls game, it might be a like BuzzBeat Plus exclusive episode, so even more reason to show up live for this. So we're going to go ahead and get off here. For Brian, I am Richie. We thank you guys for joining us today. We appreciate all the support, and keep sharing these episodes with your friends on social media. And we are out. Go Hornets.
Hey everyone, welcome to Comeback Stories, a new podcast with the goal of reaching as many people as possible to remind them that they're not alone and that everybody has a comeback story within them. I'm your host, Donnie Starkins, and I've witnessed countless transformations in my time as a mindfulness teacher and high-performance coach. And one of these inspiring stories was born from a connection that was made from one of the best friends I have in the world, and now my Comeback Stories co-host, Las Vegas Raiders tight end Darren Waller. Together, Darren and I want to help you and others experiencing mental health struggles or any other setbacks in life by telling our own comeback stories and drawing other athletes and celebrities to open up to share their own personal success journeys. Our first episode will drop July 11th.